Rain made the world smaller. It narrowed the highway to two white lines that came out of the dark and slid under the hood like tape being pulled from a roll. It blurred the taillights ahead until they were soft red commas, pauses in a sentence that never ended. It turned street lamps into smeared halos, yellow and cold, as if each lamp carried its own private fever. Miles drove with both hands on the wheel. Not because he was nervous, because you did not drive one-handed in weather like this. The rain came down hard enough to make the windshield shiver. The wipers worked like they meant it. Left, right, left, right. Each sweep cleared a clean arc, and then the water rushed back and filled it again. The rhythm was steady. It was almost calming if you let it be. The dashboard glowed a clean blue. The speedometer needle sat just under 70. He could feel the tires holding the road. There was a quiet hum and a hiss each time he passed through standing water. The heater blew warm air that smelled faintly of dust and old plastic. The navigation screen on the center console showed the city ahead, a web of streets, a bright line that marked his route, a small arrow that claimed to be him, moving forward like a promise. He did not trust promises. He drove anyway. The phone in the cup holder buzzed once, then again, like an insect trapped under glass. He did not pick it up. He already knew what it would say. He had known for 3 days. He had known since the first message arrived with no number attached. Turn back. He had laughed at it then, not because it was funny, but because his first thought had been that it was a wrong number, like a child dialing in the dark. The second message came an hour later. Turn back or you'll lose her. He had not laughed the second time. He had looked at the screen too long, until the words became shapes, and the shapes became something that felt like a hand closing around his throat. Now the phone buzzed again, and he kept his eyes on the road. Ahead, traffic was thick but moving. Rain made every car a ship. The red stern lights pulsed as drivers tapped their brakes, nervous in the wet. Miles stayed in his lane and watched for the subtle drift of someone who had been drinking or texting or thinking about something they should not be thinking about at 70 miles an hour. He knew the danger of thought. It slid in sideways. It came soft. It came dressed like memory. At the left edge of his vision, the passenger seat held a jacket, a gray one, folded neatly, sleeves tucked in. On top of it, a paper bag, the kind you got at a late-night diner. The bag held fries and a sandwich he had not touched. The smell of grease had turned his stomach earlier. Now it was just another smell, like rain and warm air, and the faint metallic scent that came from his own hands on the wheel. He had washed those hands twice before leaving, scrubbing until the skin went pink. It had not helped. There are stains you cannot see. There are stains that are not on the skin at all. The city lights rose ahead of him, a bright smear against the low cloud cover. He could see the towers, their tops hidden, their windows like grids of yellow teeth. Between him and that city was a long stretch of highway, and the interchange that would feed him into it. Beyond that, a neighborhood near the river. Beyond that, a hospital with a name that sounded kind and expensive. His wife was in that hospital. He told himself not to call her his wife. He told himself not to use the word like a charm. A word did not change what happened, but it was hard to stop. Her name was Elise. It was a simple name. It suited her. She had hair the color of dark honey and a laugh that came from her chest. She had eyes that held steady on you, even when you did not want them to. She had a way of saying the truth without making it a weapon. When she had told him she was leaving, she had done it the same way. She had sat at their kitchen table with a mug of tea she did not drink. She had looked at him and said, "Miles, I can't keep doing this." He had asked, "Doing what?" And she had said, "Waiting for you to come back." He had wanted to tell her he was right there. He had wanted to tell her that he came back every day, that he slept in that bed, that he ate at that table. He had wanted to tell her she was being dramatic, being unfair, being anything except accurate. But the truth was that he had been gone for a long time, not in distance, in attention. in warmth, in the small daily mercies that make a life feel like home. He had been gone into his work, gone into his worries, gone into the part of his mind that ran a constant inventory of what could go wrong. Miles made plans. Miles prepared. Miles watched the angles. Elise had called it his storm sense. She had joked that he could smell trouble before it happened. Sometimes she had laughed and touched his cheek and said, "If we ever need a man to survive the apocalypse, you're it." Other times she had looked tired and said, "You're always bracing for impact, and I'm tired of living like a passenger in a crash that never ends." Then came the night she did not come home from work. Then came the phone call from a nurse. Then the clean, clinical words: accident, trauma, surgery, stable, stable. A word that sounded good until you learned how fragile it was. Now his phone buzzed again. He did not pick it up. He could not. He knew what he was going to do when he reached the hospital. He knew because he had decided it. He would sit by her bed. He would hold her hand if he was allowed. He would tell her everything he had held back. He would say he was sorry. He would promise he would come back, really come back. And if she woke, she would hear him. And if she did not... He did not finish that thought. The navigation voice chimed with calm authority. A woman's voice that did not know anything about fear. "In 1 mile. Keep right to take exit 14B toward River District." Miles kept right. He signaled. The turn signal clicked like a metronome. He merged, careful. The lane curved. The city came closer. The road surface changed, darker, slicker, polished by constant traffic and rain. The phone buzzed again, longer this time, and a glance would have been easy. A glance was all it took for a deer to step out, for a brake light to flare, for a life to change. He kept his eyes forward. A billboard loomed on the right, lit harshly. A smiling family held cups of coffee. The slogan said something about mornings. Miles thought of Elise's hands around a mug, how she always warmed them before she drank. Then the rain thickened. It fell in sheets. The wipers sped up. The highway lights blurred to streaks. And in the blur on the shoulder of the ramp he saw a figure. It was not a man in a reflective vest. It was not a stranded driver waving. It was a person standing very still, facing the traffic, as if watching for someone. As Miles approached, the figure lifted an arm, not to wave, to point, straight at him. Miles felt cold in his chest, a sudden, clean drop like stepping off a ledge in a dream. He tightened his grip on the wheel. The ramp curved again, and the figure slid out of view behind a concrete barrier. He told himself it was nothing. Rain. Light. A trick of the eyes. But his storm sense did not believe him. His phone buzzed. This time it did not stop. It rang. The screen lit up with no caller ID, just a blank bar where a name should be. He let it ring 3 times. 4. Then, because the ramp straightened and he had a clear view ahead, he reached down and answered with one thumb, keeping the other hand on the wheel. "Hello." There was breathing on the other end, slow, controlled. Then a voice, low and even, as if the speaker were reading something they had written carefully. "You passed me." Miles's throat went tight. "Who is this?" "You passed me on the ramp." "I don't know what you're talking about." "You do," the voice said. "You looked right at me." Miles's eyes flicked to the rearview mirror. Behind him, the ramp was empty except for a line of cars. Red lights, white headlights, the barrier, the rain. "No one was there," he said. The voice made a small sound that might have been a laugh, or might have been something else. "You don't see what you don't want to see." Miles felt anger rise. Anger was easier than fear. Anger felt like action. "Listen," he said, "if this is some kind of joke, it isn't a joke." Miles took a breath. He forced calm into his voice. "How did you get this number?" "Numbers are doors," the voice said, "and you leave a lot of doors unlocked." Miles's stomach tightened. He did not like the way the voice spoke. Too sure, too close. What do you want? He asked. I want you to turn back. I'm going to the hospital. I know where you're going. You don't know anything, Miles said, and heard the lie in his own words. The voice continued, patient. If you go there tonight, you will lose her. Miles felt a pressure behind his eyes, as if the rain outside had found a way in. She's already hurt, he said. She's already... She is not dead, the voice cut in. Not yet. Miles's hand clenched on the wheel. The car hummed. The tires hissed. The city loomed. Who are you? He asked again. A friend, the voice said. Miles barked out a short laugh. It sounded ugly. Friends don't do this. Friends don't let you walk into a fire, the voice replied. Friends tell you when the house is burning. Miles's pulse hammered in his throat. If you know something, tell the police. There was a pause, and the voice said softly, The police are busy. Miles felt something shift in him. He did not know what it was. It was not information. It was not logic. It was the old animal part of the mind, the part that heard tone and smelled danger. Tell me, Miles said. Tell me what's going on. You have to choose, the voice said. You can keep driving toward her, or you can keep her alive. That doesn't make any sense. It will. Miles stared through the rain. The GPS showed a thickening cluster of streets. He would be off the freeway soon. He would be in the city where everything had corners. Where are you? Miles asked. In your blind spot. Miles felt his spine go cold. He glanced, quick and sharp, to the passenger side mirror. He saw the side of his car. He saw the streaking lights of the road. He saw rain and glare. Nothing else. But the skin on his arms prickled. He had the feeling of being watched, not from behind, but from inside the car, as if the air itself had eyes. He forced himself to speak steadily. If you're in my car, he said, I don't see you. You see plenty, the voice replied. You just don't understand what you're seeing. Miles's heart beat hard enough to shake his hands. He did not like this. He did not like anything that did not have edges. He liked threats that came from a person you could point to. A fist, a gun, a car in the wrong lane, not this. You're sick, he said. I'm necessary. The ramp spilled him onto a broad avenue lined with wet trees and glass-fronted buildings. The traffic lights reflected on the road in long-colored smears, green, yellow, red, like a painter had dragged a brush through the city. The navigation voice spoke again, oblivious. Continue straight for 2 miles. Miles drove. He held the phone to his ear and listened to the stranger's breathing between words. What's your name? Miles asked. I used to have one. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get. Miles swallowed. His mouth tasted like pennies. Why Elise? He asked. Why her? Because of you, the voice said. Miles felt that like a punch. I didn't do anything. Another pause, then, you did. The rain thickened. The car's interior lights dimmed slightly as the sky outside went darker, as if the city had drawn a curtain. Miles tried to think. He tried to make connections. There was the accident. There was the fact that Elise had been hit by a truck that ran a light. The police said the truck driver had fled. No plates, no witnesses who saw his face. A hit and run. An ugly random thing. But random things did not call you. You did this, Miles said, and his voice was not steady anymore. You're the one who hit her. The voice did not deny it. It did not confirm it either. It said, if you go to her, you will finish what I started. Miles's eyes burned. I'm hanging up, he said. You can, the voice said, but you can't hang up on the choice. Miles ended the call. He set the phone down hard in the cup holder as if it had teeth. The car felt louder without the voice. The rain, the engine, the wipers. He told himself he was being manipulated. He told himself this was some criminal with a sick sense of theater. He told himself none of it mattered because the only thing that mattered was Elise in that hospital bed. Then the navigation screen flickered. It was subtle, a brief dimming like a blink. Miles glanced at it. The bright route line wavered, then stabilized. The arrow that marked his position hesitated as if uncertain where he was. Then, without him touching anything, the route recalculated. A new line appeared. It veered off the main avenue and into a side street that the map shaded in darker gray. The voice spoke, still calm. Rerouting in 500 feet, turn right. Miles stared at the screen. He did not press reroute. He did not touch the console. He reached toward it anyway, and the screen brightened slightly, as if noticing his attention. On the map, at the spot where the route line bent, a small icon appeared. Not a standard symbol, not a restaurant or gas station. It was a pin shaped like a tear. Miles's stomach turned. The phone buzzed. Not a call, a message. He glanced down for half a second, just long enough to read. You can't get to her the way you think. Miles felt his hands sweat. He wiped his right palm on his jeans without taking it off the wheel. He drove past the right turn, the navigation suggested. He kept straight, toward the hospital. He knew the way. He did not need a glowing screen to tell him how to get to the woman he loved. The navigation voice did not argue. It simply recalculated again. Rerouting. Miles said aloud, no. The words sounded small in the car. Another message came. The bridge is closed. He looked ahead. He could see the bridge in the distance, its lit cables rising like white ribs against the black sky. Traffic flowed toward it. He did not see closure lights. He did not see cones. He did not see police. He kept going. As he approached the on-ramp for the bridge, the traffic slowed. Brake lights flared red and held. Cars bunched up. A siren wailed somewhere ahead, long and weary. Miles leaned forward. He could see flashing blue lights at the foot of the bridge. He could see the shape of barricades. Closed. His stomach sank, but his mind refused to accept it. It felt staged. It felt too perfect, like a trap door opening exactly where you stepped. He slowed with the traffic. He searched for another route. The hospital sat across the river. He could take the tunnel, but it was farther. He could take the South Bridge, but that meant driving through the industrial district where the streets twisted and the streetlights were scarce. The navigation screen lit up with a route that took him into that district. The tear-shaped pin appeared again. Miles's phone buzzed. Now you listen. His hands tightened on the wheel until his knuckles ached. He pulled into a side lane and stopped under a streetlight. Rain hammered the roof. The cars behind him flowed past in a wet hiss. The wipers kept sweeping, though the car was still, as if they did not know how to stop working. He picked up the phone and called the hospital. It rang, once, twice. A recorded voice answered, "Due to current emergency conditions, call volumes are high. If this is a medical emergency..." He ended the call. The message did not say what the emergency was. It did not say how long. Emergency conditions. He stared at the phone, and for a moment he saw his own reflection in the black screen, eyes wide, face pale in the dashboard glow. He opened the messages. He scrolled up. The first one, turn back. The second, turn back or you'll lose her. Each message had no sender, no number, just the words, clean and simple, like carved letters on stone. Then a new message appeared as he watched. You're parked under light 17. Miles's breath caught. He looked up through the windshield. The streetlight above him had a metal tag bolted to it. The rain blurred it, but he could read the numbers. His throat went dry. He did not know what he expected. A figure stepping out of the rain. A car pulling up behind him. A gun. Instead, the navigation screen changed. The map vanished. The bright line, the streets, the arrow, all gone. The screen showed a camera view, not from inside his car, from above. A grainy, rain-streaked image of his car under the streetlight. His car was a small, dark shape in a pool of yellow light. Cars passed on the avenue like fish in a current. The camera angle was high, as if from a building or a drone. Miles stared. His skin prickled. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then the screen zoomed in smoothly, impossibly smoothly, until the view filled with the windshield of his car. And he could see himself. He could see the pale oval of his face, the blue glow on his cheeks, his hands on the wheel. The view tightened further. It focused on the passenger seat, on the gray jacket, on the paper bag, and then, in the reflection of the side window, a shape that was not his, a suggestion of a head, a shoulder, something sitting where no one sat. Miles jerked his head to the passenger seat. It was empty, but the air felt heavier there. The heater's warm breath seemed to die as it reached that side of the cabin. The hair on Miles's arms lifted. The phone buzzed again. "She's not at the hospital." Miles swallowed hard. He forced himself to type back. His fingers shook. "Where is she?" The reply came immediately. "You'll get her back if you stop lying to yourself." Miles stared at the words. Rain hammered the roof. A car horn blared somewhere. The city kept breathing. He thought of Elise, blood on her hair, eyes closed. He thought of the sterile hospital room. He thought of the nurse's voice saying stable. "Stable," he whispered. "She's stable." The phone buzzed. "You heard a nurse. You didn't hear Elise." Miles's chest tightened. He felt anger again, hot and sharp. "This is insane," he said aloud, as if the car itself could be convinced. He typed, "What do you want?" "Money." The reply came, "Truth." Miles laughed once, short and bitter. "Truth," he said. "You want truth." His mind reached for the last 3 days and found gaps. Things he had not said out loud, things he had not told anyone, things he had not told Elise. The night she left, he had not followed her. He had sat at the kitchen table and listened to the refrigerator hum. He had watched her carry a small bag to the door. He had watched her stop, hand on the knob, as if waiting for him to say something that mattered. He had said, "Be safe." She had looked at him for a long second, her eyes shining, not with tears, but with something harder. Then she had left. Later that night, he had driven. Not to her sister's house where she said she would stay. Not to a friend. Not to anywhere that would bring him closer to reconciliation. He had driven to the River District. He had driven to a parking lot behind a building that used to be a church. He had met a man there. Miles had told himself it was business. He had told himself it was necessary. He had told himself it was one last thing before he could be honest and clean. But he had been lying. He had been feeding something in himself that did not want to be clean. The man had been named Harlan. Harlan had a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. He sold information. He sold access. He sold the kind of favors that came with invisible strings. Miles had bought a favor, a name, an address, a file, because Elise had started asking questions about the case Miles worked on, about the missing woman, about the money that vanished from city contracts, about why Miles came home late with his eyes tired and his jaw tight. Elise's questions were gentle, but they were sharp. They cut through excuses. Miles had wanted to get ahead of her questions. He had wanted to protect her, or protect himself. He had taken the file from Harlan. He had driven home with it on the passenger seat, heavy as a sin. He had hidden it in the garage behind paint cans and old boxes. He had not looked at it. He had promised himself he would burn it, and in the morning he had not. Now, under Streetlight 17, with rain and neon and a phone that spoke like an oracle, he felt the file's weight again, though it was miles away. The phone buzzed. "You bought a secret. Secrets cost more than cash." Miles's hands went numb. He typed, slower this time. "Who are you?" The reply was not immediate. For the first time, there was a pause long enough for the rain to fill the silence. Then, "I'm what you made room for." Miles stared at that. He did not understand it, but it felt true in the way nightmares feel true. The navigation screen went black. Then it lit again, showing the map, showing a route, one Miles did not want. It led to the industrial district. It led away from the hospital. And at the end of it, the tear-shaped pin pulsed softly, as if it had a heartbeat. The phone buzzed one more time. Drive. Miles sat still. His breath fogged the edge of the windshield. His heart thudded against his ribs like it was trying to leave. He thought of Elise. He thought of her eyes. He thought of the way she had said, "I can't keep waiting for you to come back." He had been so sure that coming back meant showing up, being present in the room, paying bills, fixing things that broke. He had not understood that she meant something else. She meant a return to honesty, a return to warmth, a return to the man who did not keep doors unlocked for darkness. Miles's storm sense spoke in him now, not as fear, but as clarity. Someone was steering him. Someone had been steering him for a while. He put the car in gear. He pulled back into traffic. He followed the route, not because he trusted it, because he had no other choice that did not feel like surrender. The industrial district met him with fewer lights and more empty space. Warehouses squatted behind chain-link fences. The road narrowed. Puddles deepened. The rain hit harder here, driven by wind that moved unobstructed between big buildings. The city felt farther away, though it was close. The bright towers were behind him now, their glow softened by the rain. He passed a closed factory with broken windows like missing teeth. He passed a lot full of stacked shipping containers, their painted logos washed pale. The navigation voice stayed quiet. The route line pulsed. The tear pin waited. His phone buzzed once. A new message. "You're doing better than I expected." Miles did not answer. He did not want conversation. He wanted an end. He turned onto a road that ran along the river. The river was black and swollen, carrying trash and branches, reflecting lights in shattered strips. The air smelled of wet metal and algae. Ahead, a building rose out of the rain. It was old brick, 3 stories, with boarded windows and a single light above a metal door. A sign hung crooked, swinging slightly. The sign read, "St. Abigail's Mission," the church that was. Miles's hands tightened. His mouth went dry. The navigation screen chimed softly, like a bell. "Arrived." He pulled to the curb and stopped. The engine idled. The wipers swept. The rain continued its steady assault, indifferent and endless. The building sat silent, except for the swing of the sign. The light over the door threw a weak cone onto the wet steps. The rest was shadow. Miles picked up his phone. A message appeared as if it had been waiting. "She's inside." Miles's heart lurched. "No," he whispered. "No." He called Elise. He knew she would not answer. He called anyway. The phone rang. Once, twice, then impossibly it connected. Not to her voicemail. He heard breathing. Soft, shallow. Then a faint sound. A small pained noise that might have been a word. "Elise?" Miles said. The breathing hitched. Another sound. A whisper like paper sliding on paper. "Miles." His throat tightened. The word punched through him. It was her voice. Thin, strained. But her. "Where are you?" he asked, and the question came out broken. "Are you hurt? I'm here. I'm right here." A pause, as if she was fighting to speak, and then she said, "Don't come in." Miles's skin went cold. "Why?" he asked. "Elise, tell me why." Her breath rattled. "Because it's not me. Alone." The line crackled. He heard another sound. A low murmur. Not Elise. A voice close to the phone. Then Elise said, urgently now, "He's listening." Miles's gaze snapped to the windshield, to the rain-smeared world, to the dark building. "Who?" he asked. The call ended. Miles stared at the phone. His hands shook. He felt like the air had been pulled from the car. The screen lit with one final message. "Now you get to be present." Miles sat there in the rain and listened to the engine and the wipers, and he realized something that made his stomach turn with it. The voice was right. He had spent years practicing for disaster. Now disaster was asking him to show up without armor. He opened the glove compartment. Inside was the small flashlight he kept, the one Elise used to tease him about. There was also a pen, a tire gauge, a folded map he had never used, and a thin pair of work gloves. He put the flashlight in his pocket. He took the gloves and pulled them on. He did not have a gun. He had never wanted one. He had told himself he did not need it. He told himself many things. He stepped out into the rain. The cold hit him hard. Water soaked his hair, his shoulders, his shoes. The sound of rain outside the car was louder, a roar that filled his ears. He crossed the street carefully, watching for headlights. None came. The road here was empty, as if the city had decided this block was not worth traveling. He climbed the wet steps. The metal door was scarred, painted black long ago, now chipped. A keypad sat beside it, dark and lifeless. Miles reached for the handle. The door opened before he touched it. It moved inward smoothly, on oiled hinges, as if someone inside had pulled it at the exact moment his hand neared. Warm air spilled out. It smelled like dust and old incense, and something else, something chemical, sharp, like antiseptic. Miles stood in the doorway, rain dripping off him, and looked into the dark. A narrow hall stretched ahead. At the end, a faint light glowed. His phone buzzed in his pocket. He did not need to look. He knew it would say to enter. He stepped inside anyway. The door closed behind him with a soft, deliberate click, and in the sudden quiet, rain muffled, city distant, he heard a sound from deeper in the building. A chair scraping, a slow inhale. And then, from the dark, a voice he recognized, low and calm, speaking as if they had been waiting for him all along. "You came back," it said. "Now we can finish." Miles's flashlight felt too small in his pocket. His heart hammered. His mind tried to run, but there was nowhere to go but forward. He swallowed, tasting fear and old lies. Then he took a step toward the light. Rain followed him inside, not in drops, not in water, but in sound. It ticked faintly on the roof above the boarded windows. It ran through gutter pipes and tapped against old brick. It hummed in the distance like traffic heard from underwater. Even in the hallway of St. Abigail's, the storm was present. Muted, but constant, like a pulse beneath the skin of the building. Miles stood just inside the doorway and let his eyes adjust. The hall was narrow and long, its wooden floor worn smooth. On the walls hung frames with faded photographs of volunteers and soup lines and smiling families from another decade. The light at the end of the hall flickered softly, yellow and unsure. "You came back," the voice said again. It came from the left, from an open doorway near the light. Miles did not answer at once. He listened instead. He listened the way he did when he heard something move in the night, separating house sounds from intruder sounds. The building creaked. Water ran through pipes. Somewhere deeper inside, something hummed. A generator, maybe. "You don't sound surprised," Miles said. "No," the voice replied, calm, controlled. "I knew you would." Miles took a slow breath and moved forward. Each step felt deliberate, as if the floor might give way if he walked too quickly. When he reached the doorway, he turned. The room had once been a chapel. The pews were gone. The stained glass had been boarded over from the inside. Only one lamp burned, placed on a folding table in the center of the room. Its light spread in a small circle, leaving the edges in shadow. In that circle sat Harlan. He looked exactly as Miles remembered. Narrow face, thinning hair combed back, eyes that held no warmth. He wore a dark raincoat, though he was dry. His hands were folded loosely on the table. On the table lay a manila folder. Miles's chest tightened. "You," Miles said. Harlan inclined his head slightly, as if acknowledging a predictable outcome. "Me." Miles stepped into the room. The floor groaned beneath his weight. "Where is she?" Miles asked. Harlan's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "You're still assuming she's here." "I heard her." "You heard a voice!" Miles felt anger rise again, but beneath it was something colder. "Put her on the phone." Harlan leaned back slightly in his chair. You know what this is about. Miles's gaze dropped to the folder on the table. The same size, the same thickness. I paid you, Miles said. You did. And I never used it. That's not the point. Miles's jaw tightened. Then what is? Harlan tapped the folder lightly with one finger. The sound was soft but distinct. The point, Harlan said, is that you thought you needed it. Outside, thunder rolled. It was distant but deep enough to vibrate faintly through the brick walls. Miles's mind moved fast. He had expected threats, a gun, a demand for money, a ransom. This was different. You hit her, Miles said. Harlan's eyes did not flicker. I didn't. Then who did? Harlan tilted his head slightly. Why are you so sure it wasn't you? The words landed like a slap. Miles's breathing faltered. That's insane. Is it? Miles saw it again, 3 nights ago. The rain then too. Not as hard as tonight, but steady. Elise had left. The door closing. The house going quiet. He had sat at the table for a long time. Then he had gone to the garage. He remembered the weight of the file in his hand. He remembered opening it, finally. Names, dates, photos. A woman who had gone missing after asking questions about city contracts. Elise had been asking those same questions. He remembered thinking, if she keeps digging, she could get hurt. He remembered thinking, I need to know how deep this goes. He remembered driving, but there was a gap after that. A stretch of road his mind refused to light. I didn't hit her, Miles said, but the certainty in his voice was thinner now. Harlan watched him carefully. You have always believed that if you could anticipate the worst, you could prevent it. That's called being prepared. It's called control. Miles's hands curled into fists. Don't psychoanalyze me. I don't have to, Harlan said. You do it to yourself. The lamp flickered once, then steadied. You bought that file, Harlan continued, because you were afraid of what Elise might uncover. I wanted to protect her. No, Harlan said quietly. You wanted to protect the version of yourself she still believed in. Miles felt the air leave his lungs slowly. Rain rattled harder against the boards over the windows. The sound was like static, like radio noise between stations. I never touched her, Miles said. Harlan nodded once. I believe that. Miles blinked. But you followed her, Harlan said. The word followed felt like a hook. Miles swallowed. She left, Harlan continued. You drove. You told yourself you were giving her space, but you needed to know where she went. You needed to see it. Miles's memory strained. He saw headlights on wet pavement. He saw the river flashing between buildings. He saw Elise's car ahead of him at a distance. He had told himself it was coincidence. You stayed 3 cars back, Harlan said, as if reading a transcript. You told yourself that was respectful. Miles's heart pounded. She didn't know, Harlan added, but you knew. I was making sure she got there safe, Miles said, but the words sounded rehearsed. Harlan leaned forward slightly. And when the truck ran the red light, the room seemed to tilt. Miles saw it now, the intersection, the glow of traffic lights and rain, Elise's brake lights flaring as she slowed for yellow, the truck coming fast from the left, too fast, tires hissing. He had been behind her, 2 cars back. He remembered thinking, he's not going to stop. He remembered gripping the wheel. He remembered not honking, not flashing his lights, not doing anything. The truck slammed into Elise's car. Metal screamed. Glass exploded. The world became spinning red and white. Miles had stopped. He had run. He had pulled at her door. He had called 911. He had told the police he'd just been driving by. He had told himself he couldn't have changed it, but he had seen it coming. And he had done nothing. The room returned in a rush. The lamp, the table. Harlan's steady gaze. I couldn't have stopped it, Miles whispered. You don't know that, Harlan said. Miles's throat closed. "You're not here because I want money," Harlan continued. "You're here because you needed to confront what you already knew." Miles stared at the folder. "You orchestrated this." Harlan shook his head slowly. "I nudged you." The word chilled him. The messages, the GPS, the bridge closure. Harlan smiled faintly. The bridge was genuinely closed. A water main burst. As for the rest, you gave me access when you came to me. You handed me your number. You showed me your car. You told me your fears. Miles felt exposed, as if his skin had been peeled back. "You're sick," he said. "No," Harlan replied calmly. "I am practical. You were spiraling. You were building a narrative where she was taken from you by random cruelty. That would have preserved you, but it wouldn't have changed you." Miles's knees felt weak. He grabbed the back of a folding chair near the wall to steady himself. "She's alive," Harlan said. Miles's head snapped up. "She's at the hospital," Harlan continued. "Stable, concussed, broken arm, cuts. She asked for you." Miles's chest constricted. "You could have gone straight there," Harlan said. "Sat by her bed. Promised to be different. And in a month you would have drifted back into vigilance and distance." "You don't know that." "I do." The rain softened for a moment, shifting from a roar to a steady whisper. Harlan pushed the folder across the table toward Miles. "Open it," he said. Miles hesitated. Then he stepped forward and picked it up. Inside were photos from the intersection. Traffic cam stills. Grainy, but clear enough. He saw Elise's car. He saw the truck. He saw his own car behind hers. He saw the frame just before impact. The truck was entering the intersection at speed. Elise's brake lights were on, and his own car, his own headlights, were angled slightly, as if he had begun to shift lanes. He had seen it. He had known. There was one more photo, a zoomed-in still. In it you could see Miles's face through his windshield. Eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Frozen. Harlan spoke quietly. "You have spent your life believing that awareness equals action, that seeing danger means you will always move." Miles's vision blurred. "But sometimes," Harlan continued, "you freeze, and you cannot forgive yourself for that." Miles closed the folder slowly. "I can't change it," he said. "No," Harlan agreed, "you can't." The lamp flickered again. "What do you want from me?" Miles asked. "Nothing," Harlan said. "You already paid." Miles let out a hollow breath. "I wanted you to understand," Harlan said, "that you are not God. You are not a shield. You are a man. You fail. You hesitate. You fear. And if you keep trying to control everything to avoid feeling that, you will lose her anyway." The words settled heavy in the air. Rain resumed its harder rhythm outside, drumming against brick and board. Miles thought of Elise in a hospital bed. Fragile. Alive. He thought of the years he had spent bracing for catastrophe instead of living through ordinary moments. He thought of how often he had watched for the truck instead of enjoying the drive. He looked at Harlan. "You manipulated me." "Yes." "You terrified me." "Yes." Miles felt anger rise again, but it was tired now. "Why?" Harlan's gaze shifted slightly, just once, toward the boarded windows where rain streaked down unseen glass. "Because someone did it for me once," he said, quietly, "and it saved my life." Miles studied him. For the first time, he saw not just the teeth smile, not just the cool calculation, but something else, an echo of his own vigilance. "You could have just told me," Miles said. Harlan shook his head. "You don't learn from being told. You learn from being confronted." Silence filled the chapel. Rain, distant thunder. Finally, Harlan stood. "You should go," he said. "She's asking for you." Miles didn't move at first. He felt as if he had been turned inside out and left that way. "Are you going to keep watching me?" he asked. Harlan's mouth curved faintly. "You don't need me to." Miles almost smiled despite himself. He turned and walked toward the door. Each step felt heavier and lighter at the same time. When he reached the hallway, the building seemed less ominous, just old, just worn. At the front door, he paused. "You're not the villain in this," Harlan called softly from behind him. Miles looked back. "You're the man who has to decide what to do next," Harlan said. Miles stepped out into the rain. It soaked him immediately. It was colder now, wind cutting along the river. The city lights across the water blurred in gold and blue streaks. He crossed to his car. Inside, the air was stale and familiar. The dashboard glowed. The wipers resumed their steady rhythm. Left, right. He sat for a moment with his hands on the wheel. He did not start the engine immediately. He let himself feel it. The guilt, sharp and honest. The fear. The relief that she was alive. The understanding that he had frozen. That he had been human. He did not push the feeling away. He did not build a plan around it. He just sat with it, as rain traced crooked paths down the windshield. Then he started the car. The navigation screen came alive, bright and clean. It showed the hospital across the river. The south bridge was open now. No tear-shaped pins, no rerouting. He pulled away from the curb and drove. The rain did not stop, but it felt different. Not an enemy. Not an omen. Just weather. He crossed the bridge slowly. The river below churned dark and swollen, reflecting city lights in trembling lines. He kept both hands on the wheel, but not because he was bracing, because he was present. At a red light near the hospital, he saw a car approach the intersection too fast from the left. His pulse jumped, but this time he leaned on the horn. The sound cut through rain and glass. The other driver slowed sharply, tires hissing. The light turned green. Miles drove on. When he reached the hospital parking lot, the rain had softened to a steady fall. He shut off the engine and sat for one last second in the quiet car. Then he stepped out, into the wet night, and walked toward the entrance. Not as a man trying to outrun catastrophe, but as a man ready to sit beside it. The rain followed him in memory. The road behind him remained dark and slick and endless. But ahead, for the first time in a long while, he was not scanning for impact. He was simply going where he needed to go.